Please.
Admin?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, we'll start now.
Yes, ma'am. Ready.
Very happy and healthy morning to one and all. I'm happy to welcome you all for this forenoon session of our e-workshop. We are in the successful 6th day of the 7 days workshop. A warm welcome to the participants and dignitaries. I feel greatly privileged to have the opportunity to introduce this session's speaker, Dr. P. Kannan, Professor and Chairman, Department of English, Karnataka State Akkamahadevi Women's University, Vijayapur. Admin, I can hear some noise. Is that okay? Subbu,
Yes, ma'am. No issue. No issue. Only the speaker is there.
No. If one takes a closer look at the alchemy of the achieving person, two distinct virtues pop up. Besides perseverance and hard work, those are the pioneering spirit and willingness. Our guest of honor and speaker of the day is the living example of it and has coupled with an impressive background. It is not surprising that he became a dedicated teacher in Karnataka state. Though he hails from Tamil Nadu, he has started his career in Karnataka, which has taken him to Karnataka State Akkamahadevi Women's University at Bijapur as Professor of English. He obtained his PG degree from Karnataka University, Dharwad, MPhil from Madras Christian College, Chennai, PG Diploma in Teaching English from CPhil, Hyderabad, PG Diploma in Communicative English from Karnataka State Open University, PG Diploma in Dr. Ambedkar Studies from Karnataka State Open University, and his PhD from Karnataka University. He has more than 25 years of teaching and research experience and has published 20 research papers in various reputed journals, has presented umpty number of papers at various national and international conferences. Dr. Kannan has successfully supervised numerous MPhil candidates and 10 PhDs at this junction. He has been invited to talk in various conferences across the country. Over the time, he has served as NSC officer, NCC officer, chairman of the English department, chairman of BOS and BOE, regional director, academic council member, dean, director of B.R. Ambedkar Studies, NAC coordinator, and registrar of Davangere University, Davangere. His specializations are literary theories, English language teaching, Dalit literature, and diasporic literature. He has made academic visits to Malaysia and Singapore. He was about to leave to the UK in the month of April for an academic assignment, which he had to cancel due to this pandemic. I know this because I had a privilege to be in Karnataka State Women's University in the month of March. And it was then this pandemic started and lockdown was imposed in Karnataka. It was Professor Kannan who took care of my entire family and made us feel home and helped us to reach Kodaikanal safely. He always says this to me, Madam, I have 5 sisters and you are my 6th sister. How privileged am I? Thank you, Anna, for that. And his passionate dedication to promote language and literature as an important component of empowerment is inspiring. He has set an extraordinary, yes, you can, example for many more scholars. All these achievements aside, his greatest strengths are his ability to captivate an audience and the depth and breadth of his knowledge in literature and its allied fields. I feel confident that all of you will gain immensely from his talk. And to this end, I request you to pay careful attention to his lecture on responses to Indian politics in the novels of Indian diaspora and interpretation. Dear Professor, I officially invite you to take over. Thank you.
I request Professor P. Kannan sir, can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Can I stop now? Hello.
Sir, yes, sir, you can, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, please, sir.
I thank Dr. Jaipriya, my sixth sister, for introducing me to all of you. Professor S. Armstrong, University of Madras, Professor Jaipriya, Mother Teresa University, Kodaikanal, Dr. A. Ram Mannar, Thirumalai Nayakar College, Madurai, Professor T. Marks, Pondicherry University, who is the wire puller of the entire team. Ladies and gentlemen, I have selected to discuss the response to Indian politics in the novels of Indian diaspora in this session. In my presentation, I would interpret the response to Indian politics in Salman Rushdie's Shalimar the Clown, Shashi Tharoor's Riot, Amitabh Ghosh, The Shadow Lines, Rohinton Mysteries, A Fine Balance, and Abba Avesa's BBG. Before I pick up this novels for interpretation, I would like to quickly give a brief account of the concept of diaspora. Broadly, diaspora is classified into old diaspora and new diaspora. Old diaspora is also called sugar diaspora, and the new diaspora is also known as the modern diaspora, with other minor categories of diaspora. Old diaspora refers to the intentued laborers who were moved from their homeland to the European colonies to work in their plantations. It is also called sugar diaspora because the plantations in which these laborers were deployed were largely sugar plantations. There is also a concept called Girmit diaspora, which refers to the migrants who were moved to foreign countries on government agreement. This agreement became corrupted as Girmit nowadays. Then the modern diaspora or new diaspora refers to the people who migrated to European countries and other foreign countries for receiving higher education in the Western universities to work in the foreign countries. In between, we have a category called Shamsi diaspora, which refers to the people from Gujarat who migrated to foreign countries for trade purposes. They are found in Africa and Asian countries. And there is another category of diaspora called sandwich diaspora, which refers to the migrants who are found in African countries, and they are caught in between the off ஆயிடுச்சுடா.
Yes, sir. Sir, we can
Hello.
hear, we can hear you.
Yeah, am I visible now? Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, sir, you are visible, sir. Visible and also audible.
All right. These migrants were caught between the white rulers and the native uh, colored people. Since they were caught in between these two people, they were called sandwich diaspora. There is another category called coolie diaspora, which refers to the people who migrated from India to foreign countries to work in the ports as the load bearers, work in the hotels as the suppliers, and work as coolies in the foreign countries. Now, the population of Indian diaspora or the people of Indian origin is almost 272 million as per the statistics of United Nations on September 18, 2019. Migration from the time immemorial, and the population has now come to 272 million. Now, writers also emerged from the category called Indian diaspora. We have a good number of Indian diasporic writers writing poetry, drama, novels, and short stories. And the central themes of Indian diaspora generally would be displacement, misplacement, replacement, alienation, and their nostalgic feelings towards their motherland. It is so because the life that matter is characterized by the aspects of double in number. In fact, they have double country, double culture, double history, double language, double home. Everything is more than two, or more than one, and sometimes more than two also. Again, this having double things in their life is largely
Ma'am, can you see him, sir?
Admin, is everything
Sir.
okay, no? Should I call him?
His connection is got cut, I believe.
Okay, I'll just find out from sir.
Um, sir is there, but he has to start the video, I believe.
I'm trying to contact him.
Okay, ma'am. Professor Kannan, sir, can you hear us?
So he has some issues in the internet connection. I request the audience to stay calm, and Professor Kannan will get himself connected in few minutes.
Good morning.
Good morning, Anand. Good morning,
Good
Anand.
morning,
Good morning.
sir. Good
Good morning,
morning.
Jaya. Do you have any announcements to do for the tomorrow's program? Tomorrow will be the last day, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Anand, you want to announce, Markson, you want to announce something about the test that we are going to conduct today? You have any announcement regarding the test which we have planned to conduct today?
Morning, Marks. Morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Test.
Means, you can drop something, about the test
Multiple
that we
choice.
discussed in the
Multiple choice.
multiple
Yeah,
choice question.
because
Yes.
we announced that they should get 50 marks in the test, and
Yes, yes.
many expressed their inconvenience, regarding that announcement. Our intention was making them, take the test quite seriously, not to mark any passing minimum or anything. So, dear participants, please take it in a lighter way and take the test quite seriously.
But the mark is not going to reflect on your certificate. That we assure you.
Madam, if his bandwidth is very low,
Yes, sir.
please ask him to switch off his video and proceed with this lecture.
Yes. Admin, can you find sir? I think he's gone.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm looking for him. He's not yet joined. He has left the meeting. He'll rejoin.
Anand, you have anything to announce regarding tomorrow's valedictory session?
Yeah, actually,
Please.
tomorrow we have invited one of the important e-trainers and who founded Mafai Educational online education in Tamil Nadu. So she will be with us for about 5 minutes, talk about the importance of online learning and teaching for the faculty members. Because for the past 2 weeks, e-tutoring is going on for language teachers from Tamil Nadu, from universities and colleges. So they are training. So I requested Madam to address the gathering online for about 5 minutes. So her name is Lata Pandirajan. She's the founder of Mafai Educational Training in Chennai. So she will be happy to announce her own experience for about 2 decades about teaching and learning tools for the benefit of audience. The second announcement I wish to make is regarding the approval of University of Madras to host online refresher course, from the University of Madras. The first time the Department of English is going to organize online refresher course for the benefit of faculty of English in India. So the site will open maybe from tomorrow or day after. Online applications are invited, and the course will commence from 15th of September, and then it will go for about 14 days without any break. And this course, I think the participants are limited to 40, but I have requested University of Madras, to demolish the boundaries to include more number of participants, because the course normally refresher courses are conducted by inviting the local experts or one or two from the neighboring states, but now it's not like that. we can invite
Sir
experts
has
across the
joined
world.
in.
Yeah, so in that way, I'll be very happy to invite the interested participants
Sorry to
to
interrupt you,
register
Professor.
online.
Professor, sorry to
Yes, yes,
interrupt you. Our speaker is joining in.
yeah, please let him. Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, Professor Kannan, we could hear you.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Audible, sir.
Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience.
No problem, no problem.
Professor, can you keep the device in the horizontal position?
Yes.
Horizontal.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let me now continue.
Yeah.
The major and common Indian politics that is found in all these 6 novels is politics of claim and division. In my discussion, I would identify the political event which is dealt with and how it is fictionalized and why it is fictionalized so. Before I take the Shalimar the Clown for discussion, let me take a quick review of Salman Rushdie's career as a sensational and controversial novelist. With his Grimace in 1975, a new epoch was created in the history of Indian English novel, especially with his Midnight Children, with a new sensation was created. Among his novels, Midnight Children was banned in India for some time because of the reference to Mrs. Indira Gandhi in the novel, that she was responsible for the death of Feroz Gandhi falsely. And shame was also banned in Pakistan because it had dealt with 3 Pakistani presidents in a very disrespectful manner. Moore's Law Sai, and before Moore's Law Sai, Satanic Verses was also banned because of the portrayal of Lord Prophet in a very disrespectful way. Later, the Moore's Law Sai was also banned in India because of his reference to Jawaharlal Nehru and Pal Thackeray of Shiva Sena of Bombay jurisdiction. This is how Salman Rushdie became a controversial and sensational novelist because of his dealing with Indian politics in a very new and a different way. Shalimar the Clown is the novel which deals with the story of Norman Boone Ye and American ambassador Maximilian. Bhumi is a Hindu girl in Kashmir. Norman is a Muslim man. Their parents are very close friends. They used to participate in all the activities together because there was no discrimination between Hindus and Muslims in Kashmir in the past. and they fall in love, they get married. Later, Bunyi is betraying Noman by going with the ambassador in Kashmir, Maximilian. He becomes angry and he takes revenge on his wife. Then the Indian ambassador, later he is trying to take revenge on their daughter called India at the end of the novel. This is the fictional story in Shalimar the Clown. And in this fictional story, the politics of Kashmir is also incorporated. Both India and Pakistan claim Pakistan am I audible?
Yes, sir, but we don't see you. Yeah.
Hello,
Yes, sir.
am I visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
After independence,
Sir, kindly unmute yourself, sir. So kindly unmute yourself. Admin, please help him. Admin, kindly
Yes, ma'am.
unmute,
Yes, ma'am.
sir.
Done.
Yes, yeah. Okay. Sir, kindly unmute. Shweta, appa unmute pannu. Shweta, appa unmute பண்ணிருங்க.
am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's perfect, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. It's perfect, sir. Please continue, sir.
Yeah. After Indian independence and partition, Kashmir is claimed both by India and Pakistan. And in their claim, people of Kashmir are divided and disturbed. The peace and joy of Kashmir is disturbed. In order to understand this, we need to see the mythical origin of Kashmir and the modern history of Kashmir. According to the mythical history, Kashmir is derived from a Sanskrit word called Kashmir Mir. The term Kashmir means a land of water according to the Sanskrit etymology. It is also stated that the great Rishi Kashayapa, who is the son of Marichi and Brahma, cut a gap in the valley called Baramul and drained the water from the gap so as to provide the place for the Brahmins to settle. This is testified by the name which is used in Kashmir called Kashayapura. There is also a reference to Kashmir in the Mahabharata. It is said that Kashmir was ruled by Kambojas with the republican system. Subsequently, the Panjals established their region, which is exemplified by a place called Pierre Panjal, which is a region in the modern Kashmir. This is the mythological origin of Kashmir. Later, the modern history shows that Kashmir was invaded by Alexander the Great. Later, it was ruled by King Ashoka under Maurya Empire. It is during this period Srinagar was established, called Srinagari, which is the capital of Kashmir now. Followed by Kushan dynasty, Kanishka was the king. Then King Capitalites ruled Kashmir. It is followed by Karakota dynasty, Utpala dynasty. A woman also ruled Kashmir. Her name is Queen Dida, and her rule is followed by Lohara dynasty. Then Kashmir was ruled by Buddhis. The king called Rinchana ruled Kashmir for some time. Shah Mir was the minister during the time of Rinchana, the reference of which is found in Shalimar the Clown. Mughal Empire came to Kashmir in 13th century with Mirza Muhammad Haidar Tughlaq, later Akbar. Aurangzeb also ruled Kashmir. During his period, Hindus were tortured. They were made to convert themselves into Islam by force. It is followed by the invasion of Nadir Shah. Then there was Durrani Empire of Afghanistan. During this time again, Hindus were harassed and they were enslaved. 19th century saw the end of 4 centuries of Muslim rule in Kashmir. Later, there was a Sikh rule by Ranjit Singh, and there was Anglo-Sikh war. There was a compromise. In the compromise, Gulab Singh became the king of Kashmir, and it is followed by Dogra rule, ruled by Ranbir Singh. His son, King Hari Singh, was the last king at the time of independence and partition. King Hari Singh made an agreement with Pakistan called Standstill Agreement, according to which all the trades between these two places, Pakistan and Kashmir, would continue as usually. But Pakistan deployed the tribal soldiers to give trouble to King Hari Singh in Kashmir, called Kabailis. It's a guerrilla kind of army. The history of Kashmir reveals that Kashmir is a very ancient land. It was ruled by the Hindu, Buddhist, Mughal, Persian, Sikh, Rajput kings and emperors. The faiths of Hinduism, Buddhism and Islam had coexisted. Art, crafts, gardens, shrines, mosques of all regions had developed in Kashmir during this time. Above all, it's a historical fact that the Muslim and Hindu people of Kashmir had lived in perpetual harmony and friendliness from the time immemorial in general, and since 19th century till the partition of Indian subcontinent in 1947, with minor kind of disharmony between Hindus and Muslims. The whole history of Kashmir is incorporated in Shalimar the Clown. Kashmir as a land of joy and and land of heaven is almost found in Shalimar the Clown in the narration. In the first chapter itself, which takes place in America, daughter of the American ambassador and Boonyi called India hears the name of Shalimar. As soon as she hears the name of Shalimar, what she remembers is Shalimar Bagh, Shalimar Garden in Kashmir. And she makes a mention, abode of joy. So this is the image of Kashmir in the olden days. Later, a magician describes the beauty of Shalimar Bagh in Shalimar the Clown like this. There is a tree in paradise. This little fellow cried, that gives shelter and sustenance to all those in need. It has long been my belief that here, right here in our unparalleled paradise on earth, which so as to sound so beautiful to the ears of outsiders, we choose to call Kashmir. The Hindu-Muslim harmony which existed in Kashmir before independence and partition is also very clearly narrated in Shalimar the Clown, where Pandit Pyare Lal Kaul
No, sir. Sir, it is audible.
Pandit Pyare Lal Kaul states this. Just consider for a moment, cried Pyare Lal. Today, our Muslim village, in the service of Hindu Maharaja, will cook and act in Mughal, that is to say, Muslim garden, to celebrate the anniversary of the day on which Ram marched against Ravan to rescue Sita. What is more, two plays are to be performed, our traditional Ram Leela and the Budh Shah, the tale of a Muslim Sultan. Who tonight are the Hindus? Who tonight are the Muslims? Here in Kashmir, our stories sit happily side by side in the same double hill. We eat from the same dishes. We laugh at the jokes. We will joyfully celebrate the reign of good King Zain ul Abidin. And as for the Muslim brothers and sisters, no problem. They like to see Sita rescued from the demon king, and besides, there will be fireworks. Giant effigies of Ravan, his son Meghnath, and his brother Kumbhakarnan would be erected within the walls of Shalimar Bagh. And Abdullah Noman, as Lord Ram, a Muslim actor playing the part of Hindu god, would shoot an arrow at Ravan, after which the effigies would be burned at the heart of huge fireworks display. So this is how the harmony between Muslims and Hindus is depicted in Shalimar the Clown. Muslims used to perform the role of Hindu gods, and Hindus used to participate in the Muslim festivals without any discrimination. There is another reference to this harmony by Abdullah Noman, who says the words Hindu and Muslim had no place in their story. He told himself, in the valley, these words were merely descriptions, not divisions. The frontiers between words, their hard edges had grown smudged and blurred. This was how things had to be. This was Kashmir. When he told himself these things, he believed them with all his heart. So this is how the harmony between Muslims and Hindus is portrayed in Shalimar the Clown. In the fictional side, the love and marriage of Muslim Abdullah Noman and Hindu girl Buni is described. In fact, both of them are born at the same time. This birth simultaneously is a kind of a motif in Salman Rushdie's novels. In Midnight Children, Salim Sinai and Shiva are born together along with 1001 Midnight Children. If you come to the Moore's law side, Omar Khayyam's mother, Sunni, Munni, Bunni, conceive simultaneously, and three mothers give birth to one child. This is something which is very common motif in the novels of Salman Rushdie. Now, Buni and Abdullah Noman get married. They are living very happily in Kashmir. The American ambassador comes to Kashmir. Before him, a dance performance is given by Buni. Ambassador is impressed and he makes arrangements for bringing Buni to Delhi, where she lives as a mistress to this American ambassador. Consequently, a child is born, a daughter is born, and she is named as India. Later, Buni comes back to Kashmir and ambassador goes back to America with the child. But Abdullah Noman is not able to accept this. He becomes very angry and furious. He joins the militant group of ISI and various other militant groups. He gets training with them, and with this training, he murders his wife in cold blood. Then he goes to America. He becomes the car driver of the ambassador, and in the daylight, in front of the entrance of Maximilian's house, he cuts the throat of Maximilian as a revenge. And he is arrested and put in the jail. And in the jail, he uses his skill of walking on the tightrope and escapes from the prison and comes to the house of ambassador to murder his daughter. India has been learning boxing, and she has also learned the skill of archery. He uses his knife, goes to her room, and she takes up bow and arrow. Both of them are ready to kill each other at the time. The current goes off and the room becomes dark. The portrayal of India can be seen from Amazon feminist perspective also, because she's a boxer and she's a skilled archery
Ma'am, can you hear him?
No.
Sir is
I-
Windows. Sir is present, ma'am, but Kannan sir is available.
Okay.
I have given the admin rights also to him, but he's
Okay.
not able to switch on the video and mic is
I'll
muted.
just, yeah, I'm calling anyhow. I'll tell him.
Thank you, ma'am. Dear participants, there is a technical disconnection from the speaker side. He'll automatically reconnect it.
Admin? Admin?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir is connecting through his mobile phone, it seems, since the internet connection is unstable
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
there
ma'am.
at
I
home.
found him. Yes, ma'am. I'm making him co-host.
Yes. Okay, thank you. We apologize for the inconvenience caused, dear participants. Professor Kannan is back.
Shall I continue, madam?
Sir, we don't see you properly. Yeah, yes, sir. Please adjust your mobile phones. Yeah, it's okay, sir. Yeah.
In Shalimar the Clown, we are also able to see the mention of various organizations of Pakistan giving trouble in Kashmir, like JKLF, Azad Kashmir, Save Kashmir Movement, Lashkar-e-Toiba, ISI, Al-Qaeda, all these organizations are also mentioned in Shalimar the Clown. And the characters are also incorporated in Shalimar the Clown. Shalimar the Clown is modeled on Mir Shah, who was the minister of the Buddhist king there. Then Colonel Kachua is modeled on commander of Indian Armed Force S.K. Singh. Abdullah Sher Noman, father of Shalimar, is modeled on Sheikh Abdullah. So this is how we are able to see the representation and response to Indian politics in Shalimar the Clown. What is the idea of Salman Rushdie regarding the problems of Kashmir? He tries to suggest that both Hindus and Muslims cannot live together as far as the Kashmir issue is concerned. At the end of the novel, we have a Shalimar with a knife and India with the archery. One must be killed between the two. The dialogues which were suggested for the solution of Kashmir problem became failure. Now the situation has reached to such an extent that the compromise between these two seems to be very difficult. Kashmir is a very important issue of Indian politics even today. We have the 370 article, removal of a 370 article and 35A section in Indian Constitution. All of them are coming up again, and Kashmir has become a continuous problem in the politics of India and Pakistan. Now, let us move to the next novel, that is Shashi Tharoor's Right. This is a novel where the Babri Masjid, then Operation Blue Star, the assassination of Indira Gandhi are incorporated. In the first section, Ram Janmabhoomi and Babri Masjid issue is dealt with, and let us try to see the mythical reference to Ram Janmabhoomi. It is referred that Ayodhya was the capital of Hosala, which was ruled by King Dasharatha and Rama. It is also said King Vikramaditya discovered Ayodhya as the birthplace of Rama, as he saw a small Ram temple in Ayodhya. Later it is argued that Babur invaded India in 1526 and found Ayodhya to be suitable for construction of masjid because of the height of the hill. So he asked his general Mir Baki to build a masjid overlooking Gagara river in Ayodhya, which became Babri Masjid later. It is also said that there was a Ram temple in Ayodhya. Babur got this Ram temple demolished by his general Mir Baki and got this masjid constructed. There is a French missionary called Joseph Taillefer who states that there was a Ram fort and there was a Ram house in Ayodhya, and they were demolished by Aurangzeb, and a masjid was built in its place, which later was called Babri Masjid. There is another Sheikh Muhammad Azmat Ali Kakoravi Nami, who says that there was a place of Ram worship in Ayodhya. But R.S. Sharman argues that until 18th century, Ram temple was not known in Ayodhya, because he says that there is no mention of Ayodhya as the capital of King Dasharatha in Tulsidas Ramayana. Another Chinese historian, Zhuang Zhang, claims that Ayodhya was a Buddhist place. It was a site of Buddhism. Now, there are evidences of Buddhist materials in the site of excavation in Ram temple, Babri Masjid, which is also now evidence for Zhuang Zhang's claim. So this is the history of Ram Janmabhoomi, that is Ayodhya. Now we have characters in Riot who speak for and against Rama Janmabhoomi in the novel. Shashi Tharoor is using the device of dialectics by providing one person arguing in favor of Rama Janmabhoomi and another person arguing against the favor of Rama Janmabhoomi. Ram Charan Gupta is a character who argues in favor of Rama Janmabhoomi. It is he who makes arrangement for Ram Sila Puja on 13th September, and this puja was organized for the construction of Rama Janmabhoomi in Ayodhya on 15th September 1992. The followers of Rama were asked to carry bricks and stones from their respective places in the form of Andolan, and they should proceed to with these materials a Ram temple would be built. When this preparation is going on, two men are killed mysteriously. There is Amir Khan and there is another man called Anup. When these two men are in the process of Ram Sila Puja, they are preparing the posters for the function. Two men in Parga come on a bike and kill them in cold blood. This creates very important crisis there, and the preparation for Ram Sila is disturbed, and later there is kind of discussion whether there was a Ram temple before Babri Masjid or not by historians in the novel. There is a reference to Damodar Savarkar, Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, who is the father of Hindutva in the novel, in the name of Guru Golwalkar. And there is also reference to Iqbal, who was instrumental for the partition between India and Pakistan. There is also reference to Maulana Azad, who chose to remain in India at the time of partition. He was not interested in the partition of India and Pakistan. In the argument, it is revealed or it is suggested that Muslims were not responsible for the division, for the partition of India and Pakistan. It was the Congress party and the British rule which were responsible for the partition of India and Pakistan. There is a character called Lakshman, who is the district commissioner, and he is describing what is happening there. In fact, in the novel starts with the murder of an American research scholar called Priscilla Hart, who has got illicit relationship with this district commissioner Lakshman. It is through the investigation of the murder of Priscilla Hart, the controversy of Rama Janmabhoomi and Babri Masjid is revealed. After this, there is another very important political event incorporated in the novel, that is Operation Blue Star. This is something which was used by Mrs. Indira Gandhi as a Prime Minister to eliminate Bhindranwale, a Sikh leader from the Golden Temple, because he was punishing those Sikhs who were not supporting the cause for Khalistan movement. Mrs. Indira Gandhi encouraged Bhindranwale earlier in order to contain the militant movement for Khalistan. But later, it is Mrs. Indira Gandhi who used Operation Blue Star to eliminate this Sikh leader. It was assigned to the Lieutenant General S.K. Singh. Operation Blue Star took place between 3rd June to 8th June. And in this, so many Sikhs were killed, and the armed soldiers were also killed in this Operation Blue Star. This was considered as an attack on the Sikh community. As a result, the Sikhs planned a conspiracy to eliminate Mrs. Indira Gandhi, which is the assassination of Indira Gandhi, which is also included in the narrative of riot. On 31st October, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, October 1987, Mrs. Indira Gandhi was getting ready to give an interview to an Irish television for a documentary. She comes out of her residence in 1 Akbar Road office. She is escorted by 2 Sikh securities, Byan Singh, Satwat Singh. Byan Singh was the most favorite security guard of Mrs. Indira Gandhi. Satwant Singh fires at Mrs. Indira Gandhi, and he fires 3 rounds. And after this, Byan Singh fires 30 rounds at Mrs. Indira Gandhi, at which Mrs. Indira Gandhi falls down dead. So this is included in the narrative. And after the death of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, there was a riot in Delhi in which people of Sikh community were killed in large number. So this is something which is used there. The politics of claim and division is found in the people of India, where the Hindus claim that Ayodhya is the birthplace of Ram, where Babri Masjid was constructed. And there is another group of people who argue that there was no Ram temple, there was no, Ayodhya was not the place of the birth of Rama. So this controversy is dividing the people of India, and both of them claim that Ayodhya belongs to them. Again, in the Operation Blue Star, there is the Khalistan movement which wants to have a separate state for Sikhs called Khalistan. This is their claim. But Mrs. Indira Gandhi is not ready to allow this. And there is the controversy, dispute, in which the Sikh leader is killed. Again, India is divided between Sikh community and the followers of Mrs. Indira Gandhi. In the riots after the assassination of Mrs. Indira Gandhi. Now let's come to the third novel, The Shadow Lines of Amitabh Ghosh. This is based on 1964 riot in Dhaka. We have to understand the background for the riot, 64 riot. There was a land dispute between the Pakistan communication minister called Abdus Sabur Khan and Roop Chand Biswas, a Bengali. It was a land of 30 bighas. Sabur Khan wanted to hold and possess this land, and the court directed Sabur Khan to pay 13 lakhs, 1,35,000 rupees for the site. But Khan wanted to settle this matter outside the court, for which Roop Chand Biswas was not ready. At the same time, there was election in Dhaka, where the nominee of Sabur Khan was defeated, and they felt that Roop Chand was responsible for their defeat. They wanted to take revenge on Roop Chand. In the meantime, the relic from Hazrat Bal in Kashmir disappeared, got lost. This is the hair of a holy saint of Islam, which was kept in Hazrat Bal in Kashmir. On 2nd January 1964, it was missing there, so there was a riot. And there were processions of mourning in Khulna, shouting to kill the Hindus. By using this procession, Sabur Khan takes revenge on Roop Chand Biswas. In the riot, hundreds and thousands of Hindus were killed. This is the background for the Shadow Lines. This is a novel where the grandson of Roop Chand Biswas is killed in the riot because the grandmother comes to take her father from Dhaka. At the time the riot takes place, in the riot, the grandson is killed, which is the basis for the Shadow Lines. The politics of claim and division is found in Sabur Khan's claim of the land of Roop Chand, and when it was refused, communal crisis, conflict was created, and there was a riot. It is also politics between East Pakistan and West Pakistan. East Pakistan was the place of Bengalis, and West Pakistan was Muslims. In East Pakistan, majority of the people were Hindus, and West Pakistan always wanted to disturb these Hindus, take revenge on them, and this is the politics of claim and division in the Shadow Lines. Rohins and Mysteries, in A Fine Balance is another very important novel where the politics of claim and division is observed. It is a narrative where the politics of Mrs. Indira Gandhi of booth capturing in general elections, Mrs. Indira Gandhi's emergency beautification project, and family planning of Sanjay Gandhi are incorporated. Fictional side, it revolves around a woman character, Parsi woman character called Dina, and her husband Rostam Dalal, who dies in an accident. Then Ishwar, Narayan, Om Prakash. These are the characters around whom the narrative is woven. Dina becomes a tailor and she tries to provide the finished dresses to a company, but when emergency was declared, there was a problem for them because the shops were asked to be closed. And Dina feels that politics was responsible for the slowdown of their business there. The opponents of Mrs. Indira Gandhi were on strike. The reference is given. It's more economical for me, better than having one big factory which could be crippled by a strike. Who wants to deal with the union gundas if it can be avoided, especially these days with so much trouble in the country and leaders like that? Jai Prakash Narayan encouraging civil disobedience, simply at all creating, thinking he is Mahatma Gandhi II. There is also another reference to the declaration of emergency, which goes like this. The Prime Minister's declaration yesterday of internal emergency had incarcerated most of the parliamentary opposition, along with those thousands of trade unions, students, and social workers. Isn't that good news? She sparked with joy. Dina nodded doubtful. I thought the court found guilty of cheating in the election. No, 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 said Mrs. Gupta. That is rubbish. It will be appealed. Not all those troublemakers who accused her falsely have been put in jail. No more strikes and marches and silly disturbances. Oh, good, said Dina nervously. After the Allahabad courts acquitting Mrs. Indira Gandhi from the case, the beautification project of Mrs. Indira Gandhi was undertaken, which is reflected in the novel. The characters Om Prakash and Ishwar come to Bombay for finding some job, and they are staying in the slum area where hundreds and hundreds of poor people are staying in small sheds. The beautification project of the government causes trouble to them as the residents of this slum are evicted or removed from the place. they are now brought to the streets. They don't have any place there, and they are taken to the camp, which was sheltering the people who were removed from the slums. Om Prakash and Ishwar had to bribe the authorities to come out of the camps. And they want a ration cards. To get a ration card also, it is very difficult for them to get. They face lots of problems and they go back to their village. There is nobody for them. The family was destroyed by the local leader, as Narayan was asking for a ballot to cast his vote in the election. So they come back to Bombay. They see the leader who was responsible for the death of Narayan, whose name is Thakur Dharamsi, and he speaks towards the direction of this leader. He becomes angry and he wants to take revenge on them, and he sends them to the family planning camps where they were sterilized without their consent. So this is how, in a fine balance, the Congress, especially Mrs. Indira Gandhi's claim that she is the most capable leader to rule this country, and her projects of beautification and family planning cause problems and creates divisions between the haves and have-nots. In the whole novel, the rich people are not affected, whereas the poor people are affected with reference to emergency and the beautification project and family project. The reason for Rohin's mystery to deal with the crisis during Mrs. Indira Gandhi's regime tenure is that he was always almost against Mrs. Indira Gandhi. If you go through such a long journey of Rohin's mystery, there is kind of a objection or kind of a enmity towards Paul Thackeray, because he started the politics called Maharashtra for Maharashtrians. Maharashtra for Maharashtrians affected Parsis very largely because Parsis were the migrants in Bombay. And in a fine balance, Rohin's mystery is against, in a way, Mrs. Indira Gandhi's rule in a very subtle manner, indirectly, because there is no mention of Mrs. Indira Gandhi in the novel. There is only the mention of a Prime Minister of India, because it was Mrs. Indira Gandhi who nationalized all the private banks. Again, this affected Parsis very largely because the private bankers were Parsis. It affected the business, the life of Parsis, and Parsis were against Mrs. Indira Gandhi. Rohin's mystery, who is a Parsi, is almost portraying the administration of Mrs. Indira Gandhi as something which was against the poor and downtrodden, even though Mrs. Indira Gandhi was praised to be the champion of social democracy. This is what we see in a fine balance of Rohindran mystery. Let me come to the last novel, which is Baby Ji by Abbas Daveskar. This is a novel where the politics of reservation is incorporated. Mandal Commission recommendation is incorporated in the narrative, which is once again a sort of a claim for OBCs to get reservation, which in turn divides the upper caste and the OBCs because of this reservation. Baby Ji is a narrative of the experience of Anamika, who is 16 years old, studying 12th standard in a private school in New Delhi. She is the head prefect in the school because she is the topper in studies. She has studied in this school from 1st standard till 12th standard. She has shown that she was good in studies and extracurriculars and in conduct, so that she was made head prefect. But Anamika has got other side also. In this side, she comes in contact with 3 women and fall in love with them. The first is a mother of a boy who is getting admission in the school of Anamika, whom Anamika calls India. Then a servant in her house who comes from the construction site called Ronnie, who belongs to backward community. Then her own classmate called Sheila. But in her experience with all these 3 women, she also wants to pursue her education in the United States of America. She wants to become a space scientist, as she is very good in physics. In the narrative of this girl, who is interested in kind of a strange love experience and aspiration for higher education in the United States, the Mandal Commission recommendation is also incorporated. Now let us see the background of Mandal Commission in general. The proposal for Mandal Commission was made by Sri Morarji Desai on January 1st, 1979. He was the leader of Janata Party then. A committee was formed with Mandal as the chairman. In 1980, the committee undertook the work and gave the estimation that the population of OBC in India formed 52%, which includes backward communities, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Therefore, Mandal Commission recommended 27% reservation of jobs in the central government and public sectors for other backward castes, and 22.5 for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Put together, it forms 49.5%, because Supreme Court has said that reservation should not exceed 50%. In August 1990, VP Singh, as the Prime Minister, tried to implement this Mandal Commission reports, but there was a nationwide protest, especially students' protests. Immolation attempt was made by Rajiv Goswami on 19 September 1990 from Deshbandhu College, Delhi. 200 immolation cases were recorded. Surendra Singh Chauhan was the first victim of immolation on 24 September 1990. 50 lives were lost in the protest. Now, the reservation ratio is 16.2% for SC. Now, the population is 16.2% of SCs, 8.2 of STs, and 18.8 of OBCs. So this is the ratio, and Mandal Commission recommendation was implemented. There was a protest, and this protest is incorporated in the narrative of Babyji. It goes like this in the novel. In the school assembly, the boy who read the news said that the government had decided to implement the recommendations of Mandal Commission and increase the number of reserved seats for scheduled castes in schools and colleges. This was fresh news from the morning. It shocked me. Anamika says this after hearing the news read in the school. Again, there is a character called Vidur who responds to this Mandal recommendations like this. The new reservations are completely wrong. But Sheila responds to this reservation policy like this. The scheduled castes have been wronged throughout our history. We have to atone for it. Sheila was arguing with equal passion. There is another character called Chakra Dev who belongs to Yadav community, which comes under OBC. He says the Brahmins have exploited everyone for centuries. Chutias. He abuses Brahmins by saying Chutias. Sheila again says, do you know how many atrocities are committed against them now? For this, Anamika responds, that is a separate issue from reservations and a much bigger one, Anamika said. India also joins this debate, and she says, at least you do not have to worry about a Mandal Commission. This she says to her mother. Anamika applies for college next year. They will probably have the new reservation policy in full effect. Chakradev is identified as Yadav and Jot. Ronnie says this one. And Anamika's mother makes a comment on this, that most dominant caste in UP economically and politically, this is a reference to Yadav caste, and she says that this is the most dominant caste economically and politically in Uttar Pradesh. India also says, I hope my son gets into your school before the policy comes into effect. Again, India, when they are talking about merit, says merit is obsolete. Only sons and daughters of politicians and rich people get anywhere in India. Again, there is a TV news which is included in the narrative. The newscaster said that a 17-year-old student had set himself on fire to protest Mandal Commission recommendations. He has been hospitalized in Safdar Rajang Hospital and was suffering from third-degree burns. This is going on, and again, Anamika takes the help of the friend of India to submit her applications in the counseling office for getting admission in America. She has submitted all the documents in the office. She goes to the office for the final verification, which is the end of the novel. And this is how the end is presented. I saw the back of the brochure, there was crushed in crimson, and below it, Veritas. Veritas, I thought myself. At the end of the novel, the conflict between merit and reservation is very explicit. Anamika, who comes from a Brahmin community, argues that she is very meritorious. The verification agent of the document says that all the documents are true. Veritas meaning is true. But she says meritas. This reminds us of the conflict between democracy and meritocracy. Meritocracy was coined by Mr. Narayan Murthy of Infosys, and from then there is a dispute between social equality, reservation, and meritocracy. At the end, Anamika says meritas, which means that the novel supports the merit, almost indirectly is against the reservation. What is very important for us to know is that in the name of either merit or reservation, people are divided, Indians are divided. When there is the support for reservation, the upper caste people indulge in protest, and there is also loss of life in the protest. When merit is given priority, given full consideration, the socially underprivileged people, students, and educated are deprived of the right to get education, the right to get employment in the country. So this is something which is also a kind of a politics, which politics of claim. Further, this claim divides the people into various castes. So this is how I have seen the novels where I found the politics of claim and division. All these writers, Salman Rushdie, with whom Indian postmodernism, Indian post-colonialism, Indian post-structuralism, chutnification, magic realism, all these things gained popularity, gained momentum. He had chosen the most sensitive issue of Kashmir politics to present through the mode of magic realism. Though his suggestion seems to be rather not very practically possible, he is using a kind of magic realist mode because he is the one who started moving away from the realistic mode of representation in the novels. He has used all kinds of devices, postmodernist devices. It is he who used ladies and lados, ladies and gents in his language to show post-colonial tendency to go against the colonial hegemony of English language. So we are able to see the postmodernist sensibility of Salman Rushdie in his response to the politics of claim and division in the Shalimar the Clown. And we are able to see the postmodernist sensibility of Shashi Tharoor in the politics of claim and division in his Riot. In fact, in the Shadow Lines, there is a realism. It is a kind of globalization which is found in the Shadow Lines of Amitav Ghosh, and he is giving a realistic representation of how Hindus were disturbed in Dhaka, which belonged to East Pakistan. Then we have a fine balance where we have this Parsi diasporic sensibility of a roguism mystery who is able to subdue, look down upon the administration of Mrs. Indira Gandhi. And in Baby Ji, Abba Dave sir is a Brahmin herself. Though she does not make any discrimination, she does not try to glorify Brahminism by involving herself with almost OBC people and other lower sections. At the end of the novel, the conflict between merit and reservation, merit and democracy, is something that that invites us to look into the novel very critically. She says merit. In other words, she tries to indirectly recommend merit as the principle of selection, principle of the rights to education and the right to employment, which is against the social fabric, democratic, secular fabric of this country. With this, I conclude my presentation on response to Indian politics in the novels of Indian diaspora and interpretation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much for your detailed lecture. I always say that I have learned how to learn from Professor Kannan. I think the audience will also accept that, because I was astonished to see Professor Kannan having ordered the books from Amazon for his forthcoming lecture for a national conference when I was in his office. Such a scholar he is, who is very meticulous in organizing his lectures and putting his heart and soul in whatever he does. So same happened here today to Professor. You started with defining diaspora and explaining its components skillfully to the audience, and addressing on Indian politics. You have taken up 6 novels and you've explained it in very detail. It was a pleasure listening to you, Professor. And we have few questions from the audience.
Yes.
Yeah. Start with the first one. This is a question from Ms. Ramya Muthumohan from Trichy.
Yes.
In what way traditional mythology be interpreted to create new connections for diasporic communities?
I beg your pardon.
Yes, sir. In what way traditional mythology be interpreted to create new connections for diasporic communities?
That's very obvious. If anybody goes through the Mistress of Spices of Chitra, Divakaruni. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Yes, we are able to see the connection between our conventional traditional mythologies to diaspora in V.S. Naipaul's House for Mr. Biswas, where the ancient traditions are followed and the temple Tulsi, all that is followed there. Then if you take Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, again the Mistress of Spices, the whole novel is about the ancient myths of India. It is there in almost many novels. Even in Baby Ji, there is a reference to Ramayana, there is a reference to Mahabharata. And even in Sister of My Heart, there is a reference to Indian mythologies, old conventions. There are 2 ways. In one way, the mythologies are endorsed, and in another way, they are subverted in the novels of Indian diaspora. Even the very Midnight Children is based on the narrative of Ramayana. It's a oral tradition. It is based on Ramayana.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, it's clear. Thank you, sir. There is one question from Toji Dominic.
Yes.
The question reads thus: how do you assess the situation in Kashmir? how can we account for the human rights violations happening in the state as reported by international organizations?
Human rights violation took place right from the deployment of Indian Army there. Even the Pakistan agencies of militants also caused human rights violation. And now, no, after the line of control, there was some kind of a peace in Kashmir. And this 370 assures them a kind of autonomy. 370, Article 370, now that has been removed by our government. 35A is also talking about the special provisions for Kashmir, but now that has been removed. It becomes very difficult because Kashmir is one place which everybody wants. India wants, Pakistan wants, USA wants, even China is also trying. So when all the countries are trying to claim Kashmir, peace is seems to be very difficult. It's very difficult because the dialogues have failed. All the dialogues, peace dialogues have failed, and Kashmir still witnesses a kind of disturbed, very violent, communal violence and human rights violation. I don't know how to solve this problem.
Thank you, sir. One last question from Ms. Karen Jayashree. In A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mistry, the unacknowledged mass or a grotesque unclaimed space is indispensable as it encloses the working class or the obscured. So these people are excluded from the bourgeois consciousness of a sacred and closed body or nation. What is your take on this, sir?
Madam, please repeat the question.
Yes, sir. In A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mistry, the unacknowledged mass or a grotesque unclaimed space is indispensable as it encloses the working class or the obscured and occluded corporality excluded from the bourgeois consciousness of a sacred and a closed body or nationwide. So what is your take on this, sir?
I'm not getting the question. The question seems to be very long.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
No, do you want me
Maybe
to comment on?
I can pose the question to you, sir, and we can reply her. Maybe.
Is it about the portrayal of beggars and the chamars?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Huh.
It's about
That is what I was saying in my discussion, that there is a division between haves and have-nots, and these beggars are excluded from the mainstream. They are living in the slums, and these chamas who come to Bombay, work as a tailors, they also stay in the slum. In the name of beautification, they are removed from there, and their rights are violated. And in the project of family planning also, the most affected victims come from the poor class only. The beggars and the poor people are taken to the camps of a family planning, and they were sterilized. So there is a clear demarcation between the haves and have-nots, which may not be necessarily the consequence of Mrs. Indira Gandhi's rule, because Mrs. Indira Gandhi was given the champion of social democracy and the champion of poor people in this country.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Sir, what is the most overwhelming sentiment of the Indian diaspora?
Most overwhelming?
Sentiment of the Indian diaspora.
The overwhelming sentiment here is loss of home. Loss of home.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
The basic sentiment is a loss of home, which is responsible for them to look back to their mother countries.
Thank you, sir. And on behalf of the organizers, I would like to thank you for having taken up your time to be with us on this special day and having delivered a wonderful lecture to the audience, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam.
Thank
And
you,
over
sir.
to Dr. Ramasubbu.
Yes, sir. Yes. Dear participants, we have a few announcements from the host side. You know well that we have 2 sessions in the afternoon. We have a tight schedule. So this is a request from the host side. Please go and have a quick lunch and join us at 2:30. We have first session on disability studies by Professor Habib from 2:30 to 3:30, and from 3:30 to 4:30. As we all know, we have been waiting for a long time to listen to Dr. Professor Marks on subaltern studies. So I request you, please join us. Now it is almost 1 o'clock, 12:50. Please join us exactly at 2:30. We'll start it. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you all.